I applied for an Innovate grant to develop camera traps using AI technologies to recognise species, and we decided dung beetles were probably as good a species to base this project on as any. Dung beetles have a value to farmers in the way they interact with the dung. On top of that, they also are a very useful indicative species as to whether or not you have an ecologically functioning landscape. So the value of dung beetles is they're sort of multifarious values, in as much as they, well, burying dung is in itself, or drying up dung is in itself has a value. Also, when they're burying dung, they're recycling nutrients into the ground anyway and putting it down. But your grass grows more quickly after a cow pat's been taken away, because by dint of the fact it can actually access sunlight and photosynthesize, because that dung's been removed from your pasture. The more quickly you can recycle it back into the ground and produce this sort of circular economy of nutrients, the better. And by eating it, of the liquids in it, they feed on that, and that dries it up, and then it becomes more friable and breaks down into the ground. That's the ones that dwell in the dung. And then there's another sort which like to lay their eggs in it, so they bore holes into the ground, carry balls of dung into the ground, and then lay their eggs in it. By drying it up, you're reducing the opportunity for the parasitic worm eggs, which have been excreted out by cattle from their intestines, to complete their cycle back in through the mouth of the cow. Because when it's dried up, or when the dung beetle's eating its way through, it tends to either eat the eggs or make the climate of the eggs most inhospitable. They basically help break the cycle of intestinal worms, and that ultimately, if you can develop that as a system, develop that in your agricultural system, it means that you don't have to use wormers, which are highly destructive to all the insects and your general biology in your soils. So the dung beetles can help with pests in the dung, but on top of that, we hope that it could also inform policymakers as to the practices that we're carrying out, as to whether or not they're helping deliver public good. So if we've got they're a good indicator of biodiversity, and one assumes if we've got dung beetles that we'll have multiple other parts of the food web that are required to maintain those dung beetles. Later in the project, where we really needed a bit of help with the Python script and the imagery, then we're working with Peyman Shaman from the Living Systems Institute in Exeter University.
So we have the camera setups installed on the farm, and we capture videos from the natural habitats of dung beetles, and then we take those data in here, and then we train an artificial intelligence network to identify different species of dung beetles in that specific farm. So this is a script I've written for just segmenting the objects from the images, and that tells us which different species are present in that farm and the population of the dung beetles, and that gives us some sort of a measure of how diverse are dung beetles in that specific farm.
The digital side of things is incredibly valuable, because we've only got relatively short memories, and as a consequence, if you can record it digitally and build up a database of the experiences and changes that you've got, that is an enormously important outcome.